there, and welcome to Simple Start Homeschooling. I'm Kathy.
And I'm Laura, and we're excited to be back together to discuss our second subject, and one that I find I'm most stressed about. What rules do I need to follow?
Before we jump into this question, I just want to highlight that we live in Minnesota, and this is where we homeschooled our children. We'll reference general rules and then more specifically Minnesota rules throughout this video. However, the resources linked with this lesson include additional links to websites where you can look at your specific state guidelines. We also encourage you to visit your school district's website as well as your State Department of Education website to verify your specific state guidelines.
So the first step is to report your intent to homeschool to your school district. Because I love my homeschool experience, I'm planning to homeschool my 2 children. And as I've prepared to do that, I learned that legally, you need to report your intentions of homeschooling to your school district. In most states, the rule is that you must report to your school district starting at age 6, but in Minnesota, it's at age 7. So once you've decided to homeschool, your first step is to contact the homeschooling liaison in your school district to fill out an application for homeschooling. Most applications are online now, so you can do a Google search with the year, your school district, and the phrase homeschool application, and then print off the forms and mail them in or submit them online, depending on how your school district handles things.
This is your legal step so that your child is not considered truant. I typically filled my application out about August 1st each year for the new school year, but each state has their own deadlines. Presently in Minnesota, the current deadline for registering your child or children as homeschooled are October 1st, if this is the first year you're homeschooling, or within 15 days of withdrawing them from a public school, or with 15 days of moving into a new school district.
Okay, so first you complete the application. Great. Now what proof do you need to provide that you're homeschooling? Do you need to keep grades or report cards? This is something that varies by state and by school district. Historically in Minnesota, you don't need to prove anything about your children's education to the district if you or your spouse has a college diploma. But if your highest education is a high school diploma, many school districts will ask for semester test results and the subject matter that you're teaching. It's not difficult to get that information to your school district. They don't want to make it difficult for you either. They just want to be certain that every student is receiving a complete basic subject education. So be in contact with your district's homeschool liaison.
If you ever decide to stop homeschooling, records of your subjects and testing might also be requested by the new school that you'll be enrolling your child in, usually just for placement purposes in K through 8th grade. But high school, they would actually require an official transcript from you. High school students are required to complete a specific number of credits, which that means they need to spend a certain number of hours on specific required subjects in order to graduate. And we'll discuss homeschooling high school students in more depth in a later lesson.
In general, grades and report cards help the parent who hasn't spent the day, week, month, quarter at school with their kids. It gives them a summary of how their kid is doing in a glance.
But with homeschooling, you have the gift of time. You can teach your child for as long as it takes to help them master what they need to learn. You know if they've learned their subject matter or not, and they know it too.
So up until high school, I don't need to make report cards for my kids each semester or meticulously track their grades on assignments.
Unless specifically stated by your district or state, the answer is no. Again, while you want to hang on to information regarding the general scope of subjects taught and assignments completed by semester, grades and report cards are typically not important at all.
Except for the younger kids who like stickers and stars on the top of their spelling tests and papers, right?
Oh, yes, and we did lots of that. But then it moved from there. We all want kudos for what we've done well. So as my kids got older, that meant being a little bit more fun with my rewards, like a family trip out for ice cream.
I remember that. It's amazing how much of an incentive an M&M Blizzard can really be. So for the details that you did hang on to, in case they were needed for the school district or if we someday switched to a traditional school setting, how did you keep track of it all?
We used student bins. We tried to keep it as low maintenance as possible. So each of our kids had a bin with their name and grade on it. Whatever that child completed went into the bin for the year. The big item being their 3-ring binder that listed out their week-by-week assignments. That way, if we were ever audited by the school district, we'd have art projects, spelling tests, papers, math quizzes, etc., all inside that individual box.
Awesome. Well, speaking of testing, I recently received a notice in the mail that it's time to set up an appointment for my older child's kindergarten screening, also known as early childhood screening. So let's talk about how that relates to homeschooling.
A number of states require early childhood screening for kindergartners if your child will be attending a public school. Some private schools also require this, but typically it's optional for both non-public education options, including homeschooling. You can contact your local school district to find out where and when this will be held to set up an appointment for your preschooler. With that said, I just want to remind you, the goal of early childhood screening is to provide you with resources to help your child succeed, something we all want for all of our kids. If screening before kindergarten could flag an issue, why not be aware early and get the extra help that you might need? Your school district puts the screening on each year, and if there's any area of developmental concern, they'll assist you in getting free help from your county unless you choose to find your own. It's worth it to go.
Great. So then let's talk about standardized tests. I'm sure you all remember sharpening those number 2 pencils and filling in the tiny dots on your multiple choice tests. The full day of structured testing at the end of the year. I recall doing very similar testing for a number of years when we were homeschooled. And then you shifted to a different style of testing where we spoke one-on-one with a test administrator. Let's talk about the rules there.
Standardized tests and the kind that you choose to do are another item that you will need to cover with your school district's liaison each year. Can you tell 2 of you are going to become good pals? In many states, they are a simple springtime requirement, but in homeschooling, you have a choice when you'd like to complete them. A few examples of standardized tests include the Iowa Basic Test,
Stanford Achievement Test, the California Achievement Test, the Peabody. Based on your state's requirements, you need to select one of these types of tests and administer it to your children during the school year.
As Laura recalls, we originally ordered the standardized testing because that's what I was familiar with, where when you time your child and do hours upon hours of fill in the bubble testing, you mail it in and you wait to get the results sent back to you. But then we hired a homeschooling consultant who actually discouraged me from using these tests. Her perspective was that the point of the testing is to discover where your child is lacking. That if they're behind in math, you don't need to tell your child that they're struggling in math and make them feel like a failure. You have the control to increase their math studies. You get a tutor. You focus on shifting your academic approach to strengthening this area. Or if they're behind in their grammar, you increase their grammar studies. As their teacher, you focus on their weaknesses and find ways to strengthen them. There's no point to make them feel less than in any part of their education.
So no finger pointing at them or at yourself. Just learn from the weak areas and get stronger. That makes sense. These tests are meant to be a tool to help continue to propel your children forward in their education, and they should be used as such.
All of this said, my consultant recommended the 5-subject untimed Peabody test for K through 12. You hire a consultant to come into your home and orally test each of your child individually. The test is about 45 to 60 minutes long. The test price is somewhere $75 to $100 range. We actually all loved it. We learned about each of our children's strengths and the subjects that needed more attention.
Ultimately, the testing itself is the requirement. Assuming your student is testing around average for their grade, many states, including Minnesota, don't require that you submit the assessment results to the school district, but rather hold on to them with the rest of your teaching records, like in that bin that Kathy talked about earlier. However, keep in mind that if your child scores really low in an area, you will want to talk to your homeschool liaison to see what additional testing your state might require that could result in extra resources from the district to help your child.
One thing you might be wondering is if your family can travel while homeschooling. In short, yes. One of the most beautiful things about homeschooling is having control of your schedule and your environment. In fact, some families spend the majority of their school year traveling, incorporating it into their lessons. If this is something that you hope to do with your family, you are typically required to follow the rules of your state of residence or the state your driver's license is from.
One final note on the general homeschool rules. If you decide that you want to continue homeschooling after that first year, most states require that every summer you annually provide a letter of intent or registration, once again to continue homeschooling for that coming fall. Like your original homeschool registration, this is often available to complete and submit online or print and mail. Presently in the state of Minnesota, you're required to submit this document by October 1st of each school year.
Again, this is something that I liked to submit around August 1st as I worked out the organizational details for the coming school year. No need to push this out to the deadline. Okay, to summarize the rules, you need to 1. Register your students as homeschooled with your school district within their required timeline.
2. Keep record of the subject your kids are learning by keeping their records in an easy place, like a bin labeled with their name and grade. If they're in high school, you need to maintain a yearly transcript.
3. Early education screening is not likely required, but we encourage it so that you and your child can get extra support from your school district if you happen to need it.
4. Some version of an annual standardized test is typically required each spring. This doesn't need to be a scary or stressful thing. Use it as a tool.
5. If you're going to continue homeschooling, most states require you to inform them of this annually by submitting a document of intent or registration again yearly.
As we mentioned at the beginning of this video, while most states have very similar rules and requirements, each state is a little bit unique. So please check out the resources with this lesson to help find the specific rules and regulations for your home state.
And as always, if anything is unclear, connect with your school district homeschool liaison to verify if there are any other guidelines you'll need to follow.
Thanks for joining us. We'll see you in the next lesson to discuss finding your family education rhythm.
See you then.